Right, next bit we're going to get on with is this tilting bracket here. You can kind of vaguely see it on this bit here. It goes on top of the wheel head with then this dial on top. But the thing is, what it says before you start it, to make some, it's got, you can see in there, it's got a inclusive 40-degree taper. So it says set your compound round 20 degrees. So I've used the trigonometry method, done it, and it tells you to make these, first off, make a little spacer. This shaft, these two go in between. There's an M8 thread on here, and there is, it's another M8. I'm going to do these off camera, otherwise, like I say, we'll be here for ages. And they're quite simple. There's flats on one to stop this rotating when it's in there. It also goes through. The flat sits on that bit. One of them sits down there to stop that rotating, so you can tighten it up. Now it also tells you, as you're doing that, to make a little stub axle. Sorry, arbor. Doesn't tell you what for, then it describes in the instruction books what for. So it says whichever thread you want to pick, because you put a thread in there. So I've picked an M10 fine instead of M10, just so I get more threads. And what you do once you've turned that, I'll show you in a minute, it's on the 4-jaw. There's a picture of theirs set up on the 4-jaw there. Like I say, this you read through the instructions. Don't forget, these were done 30 odd years ago. You look at the book, you kind of pick your way through and make sure you know what you're doing, in a sense. I'll say that very loosely. This, it then says holding a collet, because you put that on there, hold it in a collet, either in your chuck, if you're using a collet chuck, and then you can machine the back of it. Well, if this is machine good enough and I've got my hard jaws, sorry, my soft jaws, I'll be able to make sure that's clocking running true, fasten that onto there and do the back of it. That'll be fine. But when I put it onto the mill, because it says you can do fasten it up, I have got a collet block, a square collet block, so I can put, I have got some C5 collets. I'll be able to do, because this is 5/8. I've got a 5/8 collet. I'll be able to put it in a square collet block, lock it all up, get it all, it says like square it all up, but anyway, we'll get to that. Next bit, I'll go and show you how I've got it all set up in the 4-jaw. Right, again, I've got my little 4-jaw set in my hard jaw, because it's this chuck's big enough to take that for the job, instead of messing around taking everything out. Excuse me. I am working on, I have ordered a second-hand mirrorless camera. I'm going to have a go with a lens and try that, but that's by the by if I get around to doing it, everything else. So anyway, this face here with this finger, you find the centre pot it, and I've obviously squared it up on that. Tells you, you know, you get it, well, you know what 4-jaw is like, you try and get it as good as what you can. We've got a good bite there, we've got a damn good bite there. We've got this brace in here like the picture to spread the load, because you're in fresh air. And it tells you first to rough drill it through, and then do it for the tapping size of the hole that you've decided to do your thread, which mine's going to be M10B 1.25, so it's a 8.75 drill, I think. Tap it, and then you bore it, and then you do this taper. Like I say, it says keep your compound set, which I have done, but I am going to take a light skim off here first. Reason being, I've done it before with forge ore work. If you put your drill in there and for some reason it moves, your reference point as you're halfway through drilling disappears. If I take a light skim across here and this thing moves, I can kind of centre it to a point, but I'll also have a reference face to get it squared back up again. That's the way I'm looking at it. I've done it in the past where, like I say, people, or I've seen people as well, they put a whacking great big drill through things and the whole thing moves. And if you've had a datum hole for any reason, or you've got rid of your datum, you're knackered. So light skim first, then I'm going to drill it. So we'll come back to you when I've drilled it, tapped it, and I'm going to start doing the bore. Okay, so I bored this out with a little boring bar that's just about managed to get in. Open it up to what was it now? I've gone about 7 or 8 thou up on the tapping drill size. Yes, 8.95 I think, instead of 8.75. yeah, something like about 8 thou. Bored it out what it said you bore out, let's have a think now, about 300 thou deep, and so wide, so obviously you've got land at the bottom for these things to sit in, and then you bore it out to it's just underneath what the 5/8 diameter is. So what I've done is touched on, I still kept my zero, I know where my depth was, gone to my depth, know what my boring bar was then, and then on my compound is 0. So effectively, as I'm coming out, I should get up to that diameter it's asking for. As long as I go down to my 0, I'm at the depth it wants. That's the idea. I won't say at the moment the finish is terrific, I might just buff that stone up, but obviously that is beginning to go in now and it wants to go in. I think there's a little bit of land left on there, so you've got that squashability. Right, took these out now and I've machined it to what it says, and I've tapped it 1.25, just says make your own thread up, and this is the one they want using for a mandrel. I've filed a couple of flats on it. It says put spanner flats, but I'm not going to start messing around getting on the mill for what it is, for what we're doing. So that's nipped up in there. Now I have got a little bit of play. I mean, this is a stock bar and it was just held in the vise, so I am going to take the slightest of skims virtually right up to the end there. I have just checked this leg and it's still running true. Like I say, the drop from there to there is about 1/8. This is oversize anyway, so that drop there, you have an overall length of 1.125", and it's still these bags within on the other side, because there's little bits to come off there. You have got to kind of like be careful, and there's a spot face to come on here, but then that then will be able to be turned round, put back in the vise, and the chamfer on the other end can then be done. So I'll get back to you when I'm set up for that. So I've just touched that up now, and it tells you to use that as a datum then. This has a 2-inch radius on it, so obviously you set your tool up, it's going to be 4-inch diameter then, and you just put the radius on the end of the tool. Sorry, on the end of the arm, not the tool. Right, well the job is tight on the arbor. The arbor's in my soft jaws, which I've checked with the bar before and are running fairly true. So we put a clock in the end, because obviously I ran the bore out the end. I've got about 0.1, fourth hour there. I will live with fourth hour. I've got to bring it to length, so I will be able to get a mic on there and see how we run with that face. Take a light flick across there and see what size we get. Like I say, these, it doesn't actually give you for clearing up because of the casting. This boss here, it's got reference an inch. It's actually over an inch. But I mean, again, that's just the casting. I've got an inch and 70 odd thou. So there's a little bit there. So if you do your drop, the drop's supposed to be about 1/4 of an inch, which, sorry, 1/8 of an inch, which I am, but you've got about 30 odd thou plus on there, so it could be a little bit too thick. If it is, this mandrel is going to come in handy because I'll have to deepen these things, but I am not going to do anything yet because I don't know how it assembles and the shaft that goes through it, if it will make any difference, because it says the 1 1/8" thickness again is reference, so we'll just have to see how it all goes. Right, this face has just cleaned up, so we have 1.36, just over 6.7. .368. There's a thou difference. I think we can live with that. I've got 6.7.5 approx, so half a thou. I think we can live with that. That's running, as far as I'm concerned, fairly true. And when I look in the bore here, I can see the I centered the little pip, and you can see it's running fairly true, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to take this down now till we get close to this boss, because like I say, I think it's too wide. These bosses, that boss there, are bigger than what is in the drawing, so you've got to have some land left on these things. And I'll go down, I'll see how far we get, just cleaning it up close to the size that it said it should be. I've flipped this round and done the other side. Now you notice it's taking some of the casting out there. I'm going to sort this out because this casting is wide. That boss there is wide, so it makes the whole thing wide. Now that's fitting in proper there. It should just stand a bit proud. I've left a little bit on, in a sense. I'm going to return it round and do the other side. I'm not bothered, and what I'm going to try and do, I'll show you later on, is I'm going to turn this boss down to just above an inch. It is about 90 thou plus at the moment, which is huge, and it's cocking all the other sizes out. That one I am not bothered about. That I'll just blend in, but that is a nice clean face. You see, these are shaved down as well, and it's only just beginning to touch that, so a little bit needs to come off the other side. It will just go back round on this mandrel. I will probably just take it off, turn it round, and while I've got it all set up, skim the other end, and I am going to get across there about 1 inch and 10 thou. And then what I'm going to do, when I drill this hole through here, I'm putting a cotter pin in there. So when I do all of that with the sacrificial slug, I am then going to put it on a bar. I know this finger's going to be in the way. I'm going to put it on a bar with the centre in, a piece of ground bar that I'm going to machine it to. And I'm going to have the ground bar in there in the centre, and I am going to turn this boss back down so it looks a lot neater. Fingers crossed, we'll see how it all goes. Now I've flipped this job round, clocked the mandrel up, and it's within inside a couple of thou, and I've put felt tip along all of this. Now it does seem to be running out a little bit on the leg, and we'll see how it's running on the boss. Like I say, I've only just touched it. I'm not going to zero anything out. I'm just going to use dead reckoning because I still want to keep my sizes, because I want to get this thing down a little bit. Like I say, the casting was oversized, so you can see how we touched there and we're missing. If you can see it, we're missing up here, but I've only just touched on. That is an extra 4 thou now, so we'll see. That was just a light touch. If that cleans up within 4 thou, I'll live with that. Right, I've took a skim now. All my felt tips disappeared, and it's with inside a thou round the boss. Which I'm quite pleased at. I think it's running a little bit out there, but this is the finger. But that's the most important thing. I've had the clock on here and it's running fairly true. So I'm going to set this down now. Its approximate width is, reference is 1.8 inch. So 125, and I'm on 143. I'm going to take it down. I'm going to leave 10 thou on it, so I'm going to go down to 135. So that's taking off, remember, 8 thou. So 8 thou, and then I'm going to leave that thickness a little bit thick. It's only 10 thou. I think that'll do. Now I've just touched up this again because I thought that'll be shallow, and that is sticking out roughly about the same distance, excuse me, about 1 millimetre ish, 30 thou, from what the other one is. These are supposed to be, it locks this up, and they're supposed to be the angle they self-release themselves. So that's done now on that side, and the thickness is let's just have a measure. Move that out of the way. I am just under 10.5 thou up. I wanted 10 thou, so that's 10 and a couple of tenths. 3 tenths to be exact on this. So that'll do me. I'm only 10 thou up on its overall width. Now before I start anything with this job, I need to put a datum line along here. I need to know the centre, because there's pitch marks off to this boss here. Now the end of the casting here and here seem pretty flat, and same with that one there. So what I've done with this in here, you can't see me do it because I've got to hold onto this bloody thing as it whizzes round, because I've no bracket here for a peg. I've clocked this up, and I'm going to, it has a little mark on the centre here, so I'm going to lightly score a line down here with a thin pointer. So I've got a datum line that I can actually clock when this comes out, and it stands with this peg pointing up. And I thought to myself, that's all well and good, but how do you know if this is standing perpendicular? And you don't, unless that's sat on there, I suppose, and it wants you to put it in a collet block. And I thought, well, we don't know if it's perpendicular or not. Now I'm going to try it as well. I'm going to put a line up here, and I'm going to try a couple of parallels actually on there, because it might be worthwhile doing it in there rather than a collet block. So there's more than one way to skin the proverbial cat, as they say. So we'll see how we get on. Right, deep sigh of relief. I didn't film it because I thought, oh, it'll be quite simple like everything else. Yeah, of course, this being phosphor bronze or gunmetal, whatever you want to call it, it grabs like hell. Little tip, if you are going to do this and it tells you to sit the job like that, get a long series centre drill or two, because you ain't going to centre drill that, not with a normal one, not unless you have a very fine centre drill holder or something like an ER11, and you can put them in there. Then, now, here's the good thing, it's like drilling the holes through there. You know what it's like with phosphor bronze, it'll get us halfway through and grabs, unless you really go at it, cut it fast. Anyway, I ended up with some slot drills. Luckily, I have some, I had a long series 12. I opened it up with the 10 and then went through with the 3 flute 12 before I put the 1/2 inch. Now this is 1/2 inch ground bar, so it says on there. And I think it has been polished down a bit, that end. Now, that's gone in. I would say maybe a little bit of tickling. I don't think I'll be making a sacrificial one out of this, because it'll be hard. Because what it says now, and I'm doing cotter pins, I mean, you might be able to... The reamer's done a good job. Buy quality reamers. Don't buy the crap stuff. Everything seems to have stayed in place. It grabbed a couple of times. I had to reclock it again. But that's through there now. So what it tells you to do is, if you've got it in your collet chuck, which it doesn't matter to me, I will be able to stand it up either that way or whichever way. I'll have a look on the drawing, because could do with cleaning that up. That's been cleaned up. I think it's this way actually, yeah, clean up on there. So I've got a nice face. I might put it that way around, and I'll do this off camera, because you've all seen me do cotter pins. You take half of that distance, half of your whatever the thread is on your cotter pin, and then you add about 20 thou, half a mil, so it just kind of overlaps. Sounds like someone's doorbell's going off. And this will be interesting, because I would highly recommend using slot drills. It goes through this stuff better, especially 3 fluters. If you do put a small pilot drill through, 5 mil or something, like I say, you know what it's like, it's going to grab. Slot drills do go through ever so slightly better, or I've found that out. Anyway, someone's ring camera thing telling them they're not in. I'll do that bit off camera, and it wants that facing. I don't know if there's a thickness, I'll find out, and then we'll get back after I've done that. Right, so I've got some ground bar set in here. I've got a boring bar, and obviously we'll be boring with all backlashes coming this way, so I've touched on the back of the bar here, and it will be a minus figure of 1/2 inch, but we're coming that way anyway. Then I've got the cotter pin set up in there. We shall remove that so I can see how far the bar's gone past. And put the other half in. I've got a bolt here and it's got like a couple of threads on it, but there, that's revolving, right? That's what, quarter of a turn? That's shoving the chuck round, right? That's how good that is. That was less than a quarter of a turn. What I'm saying, that was about an eighth. That's a quarter of a turn. And we're less than a quarter of a turn and I can shove the chuck round. Now, depth wise, it's half an inch from the centre line. So if I touch there and add on quarter of an inch with that boring bar, or at least we'll come back quarter of an inch from the boring bar, you've got to jiggle it by eye. It's all reference numbers, but anyway. So a quarter of an inch is approximately about there. So let's get out of the way of this bloody thing, because we want to be in there. We want to make sure that's going to clear. And I have now got to machine this down to quarter of an inch depth. Don't forget, we've added, we've taken away quarter of an inch for this, and we've touched on, and I need to come out 7/8, and on the drawing it does take material off the back of there. So this is going to be interesting without hitting anything. So we know everything's clear there. Oh, let's get cracking. I'm going to very gingerly rough this out first. That's 300th thou in depth. I'll get back to you. If I hit anything, I'll tell you. Now, you can see, now we're beginning to take away a little bit the back of this peg. I am ready to cut 850 on the diameter. Whether I'm leaving too much on here, I mean it says clean the face. How you cannot clean the face with that peg there. There's a pin sits at the bottom of here with it's got an M6 tapped hole, and I'm assuming a washer goes in the end because the peg is shorter than the depth of this. We will have to wait and see about that, because it sits in a V at the other end, so this thing can pivot round. And I'm assuming there's just a light washer, so obviously it carries on pivoting because this thing locks it in, and the washer is just there to hold it in. So I'm assuming it's smaller than the 7/8, but if this fouls in any way, we'll have to just machine it later on. But we're at a point now where I'm 25 thou off the bottom of the depth that they want me to go to, and I'm about 25 thou off this finished depth here. So here we go. now within 5 thou. And that should be the finished depth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do an undercut, so whatever goes in there should sit flush. Now this should be, that's 875. I'd say I'm assuming it's for a small washer, the retaining washer, just to hold the pin in. See where we took some of that, the peg out there. I say this is all for reference, or reference it says. Well, let's see how close we got. .871 with the vernier, which I think we'll have that. Well, when I actually get hold of it there, I've got 875 or 873 when I bring the vernier off. 70 up there. So I think we're going to have that now. And what it tells you to do then is swap it round and bring these other two to length, and I'll do the same method again. I can't actually measure the overall distance. Oh, I might be able to get a mic just in the end of there. Probably, well, you never know. Might be a bit on the tight side. Because I can't take this out. I say it tells you to face it. You can't really face it off. The only thing to do is put it in the milling machine and just mill round it and take it down. Which, the milling machine's set up. That might be worthwhile doing actually while it's like that, and then we can just get rid of all of that, take it down to 1 thou above, and at least I would probably just be able to touch it with a mic, or I can try and blend it in the same as. So here we go. Right, I've done the same method again. Turn this round. The finger manages to stick down there, the bar's not moved, so it should be running true. Tell you what, let's have a look. Got about 1 thou and a bit. Could be the pointer, could be anything, but 1 thou and a bit, I'm not bothered, that'll do. Right, so I've done the same again. I touched on here and actually called it +1/4 on my DRO. So that's 0. So this boss now needs cleaning up, and if I touch on with my DRO, I have got, there's 200 thou needs to come off that to make it to 1 inch. This one here needs to be 1.25 inches. Sorry, 1.8 inches. So that should be, that's 200 thou, because that's when I've had them sat on here. So it's about 203. So I've had a couple of thou difference. 3-5 thou difference depending on where you are in the casting. So it's been pretty flat. That's, you know, a little bit of run out, but this down to 1 inch now, and that from there 1.1 inches. I'll get back to you once I've done these two. Now we brought these two to length. Now that's 1 inch, that's 1.1 inches. Casting. It's just under, oh there again, if you go that end it's completely different. Yeah. So that's them two brought now to length. Now I said this boss was oversized and brought this down, so what I'm going to do, well, I've got this cutter in, I know I can go about to plus 625. I'm going to run this backwards and just see if I can clean this boss up. Oops, nearly went the wrong way then. We're beginning to clean that up now. Now let's see if we can get a size on that. Fat 61,000, and I've got on my DRO 59.5. So I was pretty close touching on the bar. Now I'm going to take it down to 5 thou up on 1 inch. It just looks a bit better. I just cleaned that by hand, running up there. For me, that looks a bit better, and that's how much was on that boss. I'd like to have done something on the other side, but that would be rotary table work. And this is also giving me a reference now, because I've got to swap this boring bar out, and there's a radius on the end of there. I think it's about 2 inch, I think, or something, that needs cleaning up on there. So this now I've got a definite size on that boss. Got 1.6" now. I was a little bit out there, but if you remember, I did leave that 10th thou up, so that will just be blended. But at least that gives me a reference then with my next tool to put this radius on the end of there. Now another thing I've just seen is they want clearing cuts before I take this bar out. It's a good job I actually set that up. There's a clearing cut in there from this setting. It's 3 inches on the diameter and 5/8 deep. So while I've got this boring bar in, I've made sure I can get, there's 630, and we can get in there. That'll clear. We know it'll clear. So while we're here, we'll get that done as well. I'll do that off camera. You've seen me do some of this. If that goes bang, I promise I will tell you. Now I'll clean this up. Gives you a size on the drawing. I think it's ballpark figure because the instructions just say clean the face. I mean, we're 20-30 thou down, but it looks like it's sat in fresh air. And it says 30 degrees, clean that up, which I have done. Then 45 degrees. Now I've set this accurately at 45 because once we've done this little relief angle, there's a bore got to go in there at 45 degrees, and it's got to be pretty much spot on, because you leave it, then make the mating part. So we're taking this out with whatever tool we've got. I've got a parting tool here because it's taking the face off. It's doing it. I'm trying to see which is best for a finishing cut, either cutting in or cutting out, and it's looked like it's coming out. I think it's going to need a bit of a polish. Right, that on here is done. Now let's see what this is like. That was 1/4 of a turn. So a little bit of polishing, but that for on here now I think is done. It's now telling you to make the mating part, because you've got your compound set that's going to go in there. So it's get that done, and then I think it's onto the milling machine, because this has a slot in it and it has some 15-degree angles, so it could be rotary table time. We'll have to see. I've just turned this the same way as what I turned that. Obviously turned it backwards. I've done it off camera. Sorry, that's rocking about. And then just, it wanted a good sliding fit to fit. It's got to pivot on that now, so it's just buffed up. Sorry, my camera's rocking. Now it asks you to there's a drilled hole in the end. It says drill and ream it. Well, it's all sat there, which we'll probably do that next, because when I turn it around, at least I can clock, because I've done this up slightly bigger bar than what it said, so I can clock this when I turn it around, either hold it in a collet. I'll just do a little bit more polishing on there, because like I said, this has got to pivot on that now, so I just want to make sure it's all nice and smooth. Next operation on this, there's a slot through here and at 30 degrees. So I know I've machined the top of that, and that is flat, so I've got my little digital spirit level thing. Now I've already set it on the jaw there, and I know it's level, so we're just going to couple of taps. Oh, that was handy. Right, well, I've opened it up. I've done a equal. It's supposed to be about 25 outside. We're just shy of 3/8, but it's just a slot, so it doesn't matter. I was going to put a 10mm through, but I thought no, I'm just shy. And so I'm now going to clean it all off and get it tilted over to 30 degrees. You know what? I was doing it the wrong way around, like a divvy. Right, where are we? 0.2. Oops, too much. Right. There we go. That's near enough. Right, so now we've got it at the right angle. It's 30 degree angle, 30 degree across there, because it leaves a little bit of land down there. So I'm going to go across the centre first and open it up to the same settings as what I had these two, and then I'm going to get a centre drill like what I did with the other one and put a line right way down the middle. It's going to be a sighting line. Right, that is only done about 1/10 out, but that is good enough. Little line in there, so I think that is coming out now. Right, now I'm going to end this episode here. It'll have probably dragged out somewhere, God knows how long. As you can see, I put the slot in there. The next job is a rotary table job. You put it on the rotary table like so, and if you see down here, it's got little edges to it, and there's also lots of markings on lots of other bits and bobs that end up making. There they are, there again as well. And they you set them 15 degrees off the centre, so you find your centre again, clock everything nice and straight. That should be in the centre. Rotary table 15 degrees over there, 15 degrees over there, as accurate as what you can. So that's all like milling work on that done. I'm pleased with my cotters again, and I've got lots of other bits like that goes in there. There's a collar goes on there. I think that actually goes the other way around. Yes, because there's, see there, it's got a nut, so it might be that way around actually, and that's the handle. Or will it? No, it won't. Sorry, call me a liar. It goes that way around because that has the flat on it. Yes, it does, because when it goes in there, that stops that revolving round, and that pivots round it. Hence the handle and the pointer, and wherever the other bit's gone that I had. Beg it off. No, it's not. It's in my hand. What a divvy. Because I was looking at the nuts before. So yeah, that fits on there. You put your handle on there, lock it up. They're supposed to free off as soon as you do, for obviously marking some angle. Cotter in there. This shaft. I did drop a bollock. I turned it, and I turned that the same diameter as the other spiggety bit that goes in the bottom. So I thought, right, well, I've got everything set up, because I thought if I drop that in there, it will start to leave a ridge. So for what it was, I knocked another one up. You see, that's like a thrust washer. Goes there. It needs turning down. It says you do them a bit long, and then you obviously get a nice fit to it. That goes on there, screw in there, but you want this thing to turn nicely, and then the cotter locks it up, and obviously the gunmetal lubricates it all. So like I say, there's some milling work. There might be some on there. I don't think there is. There's a rotary table job on that. There is some milling work. There's a flat and a little peg to go in there. That's done, except for when you assemble it, trim it. That's done. These are two setting shafts that need flats on them. So again, they're just flats. I'll do them off camera. And the other thing I did, this is a dust seal for the end of the head, the tilting. There's the arm, the rocker arm. Washer goes in there, a felt washer. There's 3 holes to go on there. Again, rotary table job. There's my cotter. That'll need trimming down, but like I say, I've probably babbled on enough now, so that's going to be the end for this bit. It looks like it's alright. It'll need dressing up and everything. I think everything needs dressing up. You can see how the casting's off a bit there, and it's straighter there, but that's just, it's a casting, because you put your 2 angles on, like I say. So we'll see how much of the material's left, but that's going to be it for the time being. The next bits, there will be some turning jobs. There is this thing on top of here. Yep, there you go. That's that other shaft there. They're for setting for something. This is made in 2 pieces because it has this little setting piece in there. So you make the bottom piece, top collar, this piece here, that's a rotary table job as well. So I shall rough it all out, get all ready, and then it'll all be going on the rotary table. So anyway, like I say, that's it for the time being. I shall try and get it out, so I can at least keep people interested. So there you go. Ta-da. But yes, I'm quite pleased with that, how it's turned out. If it works, way, that'll be another one. So hopefully see you all soon with something new.